Hello and welcome to another episode of Marketing Matters Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Harshaw from Level 10 Contractor. I have with me today Josh Coffey. He's the COO of Lifetime Home Remodeling, uh, big company out of Denver. They're in multiple markets, windows, siding, roofing, some bathrooms, mostly windows. We'll get into that. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
Now, I always ask my guests before we start recording if you had one topic that you could cover and you were giving an address to a large crowd, what would you want to talk about? And Josh, without any hesitation, 0 seconds lag time, you said people. People. Okay.
Absolutely.
So why people and why so like look, obviously people is important. Everybody knows that. But why is that so quick to be your immediate answer?
Yeah, I think it's multifold, but I think the biggest reason is that I think good people are good, right? But when it comes to great people, Steve Jobs always said that great people are not one or two times better, they're 50 to 100 times better. And so I think that we spend the time, diligent process at the front end to make sure that we are getting the best possible candidate for every position that we have.
So give me an example in your company, and we'll dive a little into the company and what you guys do. But I want to just go out of the gates with this people thing. Give me an example of somebody in your company who is 50 times better than a good person. Where did they come from? How did you find them? What things are they doing that would suggest that they're 50 times better? Give me an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, so probably the best example that I have, the first person that came up was our director of field marketing. He's an unbelievable human being. So I think first and foremost, it's all about finding great people that fit your culture. So culturally, he's an amazing fit. He has a extensive background with field marketing and just not just knowing how to generate a lead, but also how to train and help people understand what success looks like. And so I think that he does a fantastic job of being able to paint not just a future vision for what you could grow into. And he started as a canvasser and worked his way into the role that he's in. And he's running a team now of over 150 people. And, it started from the ground up for him. And because he lived that life, it allowed him the opportunity to be able to see each step of the process and how it could be successful and how it could fail. And to me, I feel like that open-minded connection that he has with our culture, it allows him to uniquely speak to each person that he's dealing with in each role because he has that full understanding of what it takes.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I missed his name. I want to make a note.
His name is Isaac.
Isaac. Okay, Isaac. I'm not asking you to out Isaac here because this it would be inappropriate for you to do so. But if you took Isaac and you put him up against another field, what did you call him? Director of field marketing, another director of field marketing from another company that was smaller than yours. Let's say you guys are over 100 million in sales in total. Let's say you took a $20 million company. So not nothing, good company, but they probably have less resources than you, less experience than you, less other quality people. I'm just wondering, does it cost a lot more to employ a guy like Isaac? Do you give him bonuses? I'm not asking for dollars, but just like relative to another person of that same thing. Like, how much of it is we can afford to go grab the best guy versus other things?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the way that I look at how we incentivize Isaac or someone similar into his role, and even if it was at a smaller scale, it's that his base salary is not high. What is high is his ability to profit off of the people that are successfully generating leads. And we are providing him back the opportunity to make money off of the success that he is creating by the way that he's able to manage teams and really just to incentivize growth. I think the incentivizing growth a lot of times, especially as we were growing and thinking about other businesses that I've worked in that were smaller, it is hard to understand how much money that you should pay that person. But I'm a firm believer in incentivizing people off of what they are producing. And I believe that that is the catch because he can see every 2 weeks when he gets paid that the input and the impact that he's making with his team is directly tied to what he's getting paid.
Okay, so you've been at Lifetime for what, about 3 years or so?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and where did you come from?
I came from a background, two other smaller home improvement companies, one in Colorado, one in the Midwest. And prior to that, I worked for Lowe's for a little over 10 years, anything from pushing carts up into administrative cleanup at a regional level with stores, traveling circus type thing.
Were you hired in to be the COO, or did you come in a different position and then go to that position later?
I came in to launch our bath division. So when we decided to start a bath division at Lifetime, I was recruited to help with that, and it's about 6, 8 months, and then we started looking at different opportunities inside the company, and have been in this role for a little over 2 years.
Uh, okay, so this is really where I'm trying to go with this question. So I'm going to assume that in your company, there's probably give or take 10 highest level management people. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, maybe it's 9 or 12, who knows? But let's just say 10. How many of those are coming from internally versus going out and hiring them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really where it goes back to with people, we promote internally. So, we don't want to have to go find those higher level positions. We want to be able to. It goes back to creating that culture of is so important to be able to have the cultural understanding of what the position entails, and then naturally, uh, as Macho Man Randy Savage used to say, the cream rises to the top. So I think that's the really the philosophy that we try to subscribe to.
Yeah, I worked with an HVAC company on the East Coast. This is going back 7 to 15 years ago in that period. And they started out when I first came on, it was about 2011. They were doing about 44 million in sales, grew it to about 150 million in sales during that 7 years. Then, unbeknownst to me, I could kind of tell, but they didn't actually tell me. They decided, hey, we're going to sell this company. Okay. And as part of that, and this is what I could see without them telling me, they started bringing in managers for high level positions, including um, a sales manager, including a marketing CMO. They never had that position before. They just had a marketing director. Now all of a sudden they're bringing in the CMO, and they brought this person in for the CM. Also, by the way, other positions like 3 or 4 major positions. But where I was working in the marketing, they brought in this CMO who had managed a department of like 350 people at a major bank. Okay. At a major bank. So they bring this person in because her credentials are impeccable on paper. And when she comes into this HVAC company, the culture fit could not be more misaligned. Everything that we had done from a marketing standpoint to grow that company from 44 and whatever they did before that to 150, she came in and said, okay, that's not how we're going to do it anymore. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So that's where the genesis of this question is like, okay, are you going to grow these people internally? Because I can't imagine bringing in a third party person and hoping that their, to your word, culture aligns with what this 100 million+ dollar company is doing. It just seems almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in Denver, Colorado right now. Here in Denver, there's over 3,000 home improvement companies that are operating today in all the different segments that you could name. Just because one company has done it well doesn't mean that that is going to be the same results for our company. So the company culture that we've created, I could give you the full playbook, the oversized 3-ring notebook of how Lifetime mixes the special sauce, and our special sauce isn't going to work for everybody. It's our sauce. So, it is brand specific. It is exactly who we are. And, we talk about that internally too. Like, just because you like mixing the sauce here doesn't mean you have to stay here and mix the sauce. This is one company, and this is how we do business. This is how we like to operate. And ultimately, if that's not what you are looking for, then we'll help you find the right solution. We don't want people to be unhappy. And I think that happiness has everything to do with a successful person in any environment, let alone a space like ours where you're generating leads, you're selling the leads, you're installing the product, you're collecting the money, you're washing the money at the end with the accounting team. Our home improvement space is unique in that. And so I believe that it it truly impacts the culture if you bring in the wrong person. Have we brought in the wrong people? Absolutely. But we're slow to hire, but slow to hire, fast to fire. Because once somebody's not a fit, we have to get them out because the impact of that one negative person could dilute years of quality, solid culture.
So you talked about the three ring binder of the sauce. I don't know if you meant that literally or symbolically. Uh, Other than hiring the right people on the front end, which obviously is critical, and you guys seem to have a good handle on that. How do you forge the culture in the business for the people who are there? Okay, we hired everybody who's here. We went through a process to make sure you're a culture fit. How do you now instill that culture, reinforce that culture, and perpetuate the culture?
We're advocates of quarterly check-ins as well as stay interviews. I think a lot of companies do exit interviews to see where they went wrong or who that person was upset with and why they left. But we want to make sure that we're checking in on a regular basis. We have a very robust onboarding process as well, 30, 60, 90-day plans. One of the biggest feedback that I always received in any professional setting was that I didn't get the proper training to be successful at my job. And so we want to overqualify people for the role that they're in and give them all the tools and resources so that that's not a reason that they're not being effective. And I believe that if we provide the tools and resources necessary, if we are finding those great people, like I was talking about earlier, those great people are going to do exponentially more and are going to start challenging the system of, hey, I think we could do this a little better. Or I think, and it allows them that open forum to be honest about what is impacting their job.
Are you guys a big core values company?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've never met a nine-figure company that wasn't super dialed in on their core values. So, two parts to this next question. Number one, tell me about your core values and how you perpetuate those. Maybe it's a similar question to the one I just asked about culture, because culture and core values are going to be very tightly intertwined. And then next, I want you to give your insight on how maybe a smaller company that has core values but hasn't necessarily codified them might go about doing that. So, talk about your company's core values.
Yeah, so our core values are courageous, accountability, and loyalty. And the way that all three are tied in, courage is really about just being the trailblazer in the industry and to just run literally into the storm. One of my favorite stories is about the cow versus buffalo. Won't go into it during this, but if you get a chance, check out the difference between a cow versus a buffalo.
No,
Cows
no,
lay
no,
down.
no, 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 no. Let's hear it.
All right, so cows, if you're familiar with cows, when a storm comes, a cow lays down in the storm, or they'll run with the storm because they're scared of it. A buffalo, as a storm comes over the ridge, a buffalo will see the storm and it'll turn and it'll run directly into the storm. And so we talk about on a daily basis, and the reason the buffalo runs into the storm is because they know that if they're running into it, whatever pain is associated with the storm is going to be cut in half because they're running through it. And so we encourage people to run directly into the storm. And it's so important to not just run into the storm, but to be steady in the storm, knowing that like things are going to happen, life is going to take place. Doesn't matter how it works. It doesn't matter how it feels, but just knowing that you have that mentality that we're running into it, not with it.
Do you
And,
guys make any effort? What was the second core value? Courageous was one, accountable was three. What was two?
loyalty.
Loyalty. Okay. Do you guys make any effort internally to find stories of people who are displaying these core values and then capturing them and publishing them somehow, either with internally or externally?
Absolutely. Yeah, we capture those and share them openly in our quarterly meetings. So we have quarterly meetings with each one of our branches where we give the state of the union, essentially the state of the business for that quarter. And we're calling out individual core value winners. We're calling out individuals where, and what the beautiful part about that is that these are nominated by their peers. So they are being acknowledged and recognized by their peers for exceptional work in that particular core value. Um, and the second part of your question was how do you codify that if you're a smaller company? The process that we went through, and I don't think it matters what size of company, is take the top two, three individuals in your company and start listing out the very things that make those people the top two or three people in your company and start narrowing down the list of why those people are the people that you believe that your business is really operating off of. And it doesn't mean that those people do more than everybody else. It means that these are the types of impact that you want them to have, both internal customers as well as external.
So when you were hired, you've only been there 3 years, relatively short amount of time compared to the length of the time the company's been in business. Were these already codified, or was this something you did when you got there?
Yeah, it wasn't codified yet. They had core values they were operating on, but again, it's kind of like to your question of they had them, but they weren't putting them into practice. And so we went through that very process that I explained, where we spent hours. It wasn't, this is the core values of the company. This isn't, a 30-minute, like, let's hash out quickly what the core values are for the company and move on. We spent 3, 4 hours going through the motions of here's the top people, here's why. Okay, why do we believe that? And so then we started nailing down the list, looking at similarities, and then we nailed it down to three.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell just from your demeanor. I don't know you well. Obviously, we're on a podcast together, but I can tell that you're kind of an understated guy. You're not going to point at yourself, but I wanted to bring that out because it was my distinct sense that you brought this to this company. No shade on the company before you came. Obviously, they're very, very successful. But when you immediately tell me that people are the most important thing that you want to talk about, and then we start having this core values, it's very interesting to me that you took this very large and successful company and said, okay, now let's codify this because now I'm going to speculate. Tell me if I'm right. Now this is a codified core value that we can judge new hires against, that we can look for stories to publish, like you just talked about. And now it becomes a central part of the story, both internally and externally with the company.
Your assumption is correct. And I also think I think too that it also gives you, accountability being one of our core values. I think that's one of the hard things is to give open feedback. And we are looking at on a quarterly basis when we're reviewing each employee in the company, we're looking at core value fit as well. Like, are you courageous? Are you accountable? Are you loyal? And that's a yes or no. And if you're a no on one of our core values, we've got a big problem. And really it's a turn back to the people leader of that individual. And it's like, why is it that this person is struggling in this area? Are they the wrong fit, or are they in the wrong seat?
How do you tease that out in the hiring process? Because obviously, hey, are you loyal? Nobody's going to say no. Are you courageous? Yes. Like, so how do you tease that out to find out where people really stand?
Yeah, selfless plug for Culture Index. We utilize Culture Index in our onboarding process as well. So once we have an initial interview, we don't waste time with the wrong people. We're very diligent. You can have people that are very skilled that have had a lot of experience, but if they don't have the right fit, and there are certain questions that we ask, and we spend a lot of time on the interview process, making sure that we're asking the right questions. And maybe it does take our recruiter 3 or 4 times to ask the same question in a different way to be able to tease out, you know, are you accountable? Are you loyal? Tell me about, and not just the time, not the interview questions of like, tell me about a time that you got into it with your manager and how did you handle it? Or tell me about a time that you had a bad conversation with a difficult customer. Like, it's not those types of questions. It's really more about who the person is and what they believe prior to what their knowledge is in the industry.
Yeah, are you familiar with something called HireBus?
I don't think I am.
It's an AI powered hiring protocol. I interviewed the guy and apologized to the guy because I can't remember his name all of a sudden at HireBus a week or two ago. And here's why I'm bringing it up because number one, it's a really cool tool just for anybody who's listening that wants to check it out. Also, I'm bringing it up for number two reason. Then I'll get to the real reason, number three. Number two, that's actually where I heard this Buffalo story before. I've never heard it before until that guy, because he's also got a home improvement company that he runs alongside this, and that's one of their core values in the Buffalo and the whole thing. So I think that's really cool. But number three, they've developed this AI process that screens people against these kinds of core values and dumps people out of the funnel that they've determined fit those core values. Other things too, skills and things like that, obviously, but against core values. So that could be a helpful tool for somebody out there listening who says, "Hey, I want to check this out."
I think it's important to talk about like with culture is that it really is the person first. Like we turn down people that are probably more skilled in what they know. But what I do know and understand is that if we have the right person, we can train them to whatever skill level that they are capable of. The promotion within concept, I don't believe that people have a ceiling. And I think it's our job as leaders to find their ceiling for them and help them to challenge the status quo. Like you might be really good at that thing, but man, have you ever tried this before? And maybe that's project based, if it's an administrative position, or maybe it's challenging a salesperson to close 5% more, or a lead setter to set two extra leads that day. It's constantly challenging the status quo of what is normal or what is acceptable. And we also, when we're setting the bar, when it comes to, you get your 30, 60, 90-day plan of where you should be, when you get to day 91, we turn back to those folks, especially on the marketing side, and we're like, okay, what does success look like for you? Not what Lifetime wants, but what does success look like from you? If I want 5 units from you every day, but you know that five is you can get by lunchtime, challenge yourself. How many units are you going to say, I can produce this on a single day, on any given day? And then we hold them accountable to their own standard, not ours.
Okay. Do you find that people up the bar usually, or do they kind of keep the bar status quo normally?
They up the bar or they self-select out. We either help them up or help them out. Because unfortunately, the results and what we're driving towards is exponential growth. And so if that mentality is not solidified or codified by their desire to do more than what the status quo is, they're going to stand out like a sore thumb.
And as Elon Musk would say, I will accept your resignation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's use that last part, the example of the lead setters potentially raising their bar. Let's use it as a transition into a conversation about marketing. Clearly, at 100 million plus, headed to 150 million potentially this year, marketing is something that you guys have mastered. Um, let's approach it from this. Just out of curiosity, what are the main lead generators that you guys utilize? I'm sure there's multiple ones. What are the main things that you guys really lean into? I think I heard you say canvassing.
Yeah, canvassing, events, and retail. Our face-to-face marketing program is robust. I would say close to 60% of our overall lead generation is from face-to-face marketing. And then the way that we complement that is with traditional linear TV, print publications with marriage mail as well as direct mail. Uh, we do a lot with SEO, uh, paid search, paid social. Uh, Here in 2025, the big thing that we've been seeing is connected TV is such a huge part of day-to-day business for us. And as we've seen the influx of connected TV going up, it has driven down the desire for us to spend money on linear TV. And by linear, I just mean anything that you turn on your TV and it's your standard channels where
Let's
you're
dig
not.
into that a little bit because as an agency, Level 10 contractor has about 13 or 14 million dollars a year under management of TV and radio. 2 years ago, it was 100% linear TV and terrestrial radio. 2025, that is starting to shift dramatically. I think we're at about 20 or 25% of that is now, and for those of you who don't know the nomenclature, OTT, CTV, those are two acronyms for streaming television. It's the same thing. So if you hear somebody say OTT or CTV, they're talking about the exact same thing. So we're seeing about 25%. My prediction is that by the end of next year, it'll be 50% or more into CTV. And I can realistically see 5 years from now, regular TV being completely out of the mix. What are you seeing?
If it takes that long. I mean, I mean, 5 years to me, just to your point about the transition over the last 2 years, even the last year, 2024, the change from what was December 23 to what is January 25 is a completely different landscape. Um, I would say that on the linear TV side, we're really just focused on branding campaigns, just getting our name out there in certain targeted buys, certain programs that we saw success in. But outside of that, when we're looking at lead generation, we're really going after connected TV as well as retargeting efforts to be able to latch back to, anything that we're doing on the paid search and social side.
Making myself a note based on what you just said. I like the things that you're talking about. For those of you who are listening, this is the Marketing Matters podcast. We do it in conjunction with Qualified Remodeler. I'll actually be at the Fast Remodeler Live talking about this exact topic, OTT, CTV. Give you the latest and greatest on that. I'll tell you why we've been switching from linear to OTT. Let's dig into it a little bit more from your perspective, Josh. I don't know how granular you personally are aware of what you're doing on the CTV side. I suspect it's pretty granular. What are you seeing as working in terms of publishers that you're leaning into? Uh, what's your strategy there?
Yeah, one of the big things is not just impressions, but also what are they willing to provide as far as retargeting as well. I think that's a huge missing aspect of CTV and OTT, as we've been talking about, is that what once that person sees and they get an impression, how many out of 100% are they actually retargeting so that they see more display ads from you? And what we do is, and I would strongly recommend to anyone, it would be that be very specific on not just a customer large range that you would want to be in, but grab a couple fields within your market. What is the house value that you really want to be in? What is the age of home requirement for us? Houses that are 12 years and older. And then obviously household income is a huge impact as well. And that's going to depend on market also. But
What are you seeing? Let's talk about that. Let's dig into that a little bit because this is something that we've been trying to come to grips with. So on the one hand, traditional targeting is okay. We want to hit people of a certain age. We want to hit typically homeowners that are 45 to 65, and you can slice and dice that however you want. But typically, traditionally, it's been, hey, we don't want to target people who are 25 to 45. They don't own homes typically. They don't have money typically compared to this other demographic. But OTT kind of flips the script, right? Because it says we're going to target based on demographic information and geographic information that we know about these people. We're going to hit them on a household IP address basis. All of that is a build up to this question, Josh. We look at it and say, if the guy's 32 years old and owns a home of X dollars of value that's 12 years old, again, to your point, we don't really care how old he is anymore. Like, we're not even targeting age anymore. And also, so I'm gonna throw two. One is the age thing. The other is the income thing, because there are a lot of senior people who don't necessarily show up on the data points as having high income, but they've got home value, they've got net worth. So we're kind of leaning towards just no age restrictions at all, no income restrictions at all, just simply home owner, 12 years or more, and home value X dollars depending on the market. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that I don't think that age matters near as much as it used to. There's people with wealth that are younger and people that are older. And to your point about the older demographic that may be on Social Security that wouldn't necessarily hit those income brackets, I think there are certain marketing channels that you can put yourself in. You know, paid social is a great way to contact people that are over the age of 60 right now. We see a huge influx of people that are in the older generation that are part of, my parents' generation that really are all over the social media. So it gives us the opportunity to target those folks. But I think to your point about like missing people, if you're going too specific with age, I think you do have the real opportunity to miss. And it that that is probably, I would say that's probably one of the biggest discussions internally is like, are we targeting the right people with what we're doing on connected TV? And not necessarily with age, but where can we get away with income level that isn't too low? But I would say the biggest factor that we have is just making sure that houses are old enough to be able to to install our product.
Well, in let's take like the Denver market's going to be way different than the San Diego market. Like you probably don't want to touch a home under what, maybe 800,000 or a million in San Diego, whereas in Denver it might be 500,000 or something like that. Does that sound about roughly correct?
Yeah, it's a little higher in Denver, but yeah, you're on track. I mean, and again, it's just all based on the market, and I think if you were going to target directly to household income, just be sensitive to that, and we do a lot with Zonda, and we look at a lot of different reporting demographics so that we can understand exactly what we're looking at in that particular market. I don't want to exclude people thinking that I'm doing the right thing when I could be opening it up to a $10,000, $20,000 lower range, and be able to pick up people that maybe they're not the cash buyer that I'm looking for, but they would be a finance buyer because they have the ability to finance and pay for that project.
Okay, so let's say in Denver, let's say that when I said 500,000, you said probably higher. So let's say it's maybe 750. It doesn't really matter what the number is. Let's say it's 750 though and above for your company because Infinity from Marvin, it's a more expensive product. You're not competing against the low end vinyl guys. Okay, great. So if you looked at all of the homes in the market and you said what percentage of homes that exist are 750 and above, it's probably going to be something like 30-40%, give or take.
Correct.
Okay. So again, back to my earlier point, I kind of look at it like this. If you're 32 years old, or if you don't have a high income level, if you're the homeowner of an $800,000 house, I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't either. I
What do I
mean,
care?
and I would say too that like the one of the things that we've been talking about in that transition from 23 to 25 is that people are just more knowledgeable now. They have so much access to information and they research. And so in each age range, I think you see that there are certain types of personalities that do more research than others that want to get out and get a bunch of quotes. And I think that that really impacts what we do as far as targeting. And as you know, and anybody that's watching or listening to this, like linear TV is a lot cheaper per impression than what connected TV is if you've went through that experience before. And so you want to make sure that if you're going to target somebody for twice as much on an impression, that you're getting twice as quality of a result, because you can segment out the two and say, okay, well, this is what I would expect from traditional TV, and then from connected TV, this. I want my impressions to always match as far as my return on ad spend. Like if I'm going to spend 20,000 with linear TV and I'm going to spend 20,000 with connected, I want to make sure that I'm getting the same reach, not just with impressions, but with dollars in the register. Because in our business, impressions are great, retargeting is fantastic, but if it's not converting into a contract, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well, and not to make this whole conversation about OTT, but it is interesting to have the conversation with somebody that's as deep into it as you guys are. One of for the audience that's listening, if you're not totally dialed into OTT, some of the major benefits are the targeting, both geographically down to the zip code level, and then also demographically, like we've been discussing. Um, but also there's an attribution part of this where you put so you're going to be sending impressions to qualified people according to those demographics and geographics to a specific IP address. And then with that IP address, we can drop a cookie on their device. And so we can know later on if they come to your website, we can know that they also saw this impression. Now, this is really, really cool. You can't do anything like that with linear TV. Here's where I'm going with this question, though, Josh. Get your thoughts on this. You can go crazy slicing and dicing the data that you get from this because you can say, okay, let's look at where we're performing well in terms of zip codes, in terms of home values, in terms of publishers within the OTT spectrum. Let's take a look at time of day where we're getting the most impressions and so forth. Does that drive you nuts? At some point, you have to stop and say, okay, we can't optimize everything at the same time. Like it's a great tool, but it also introduces a level of complexity that can be difficult.
Yeah, I think for us, you can drive yourself nuts. I mean, especially if you're using some sort of generative model to be able to look at data and splice it however you want, you can drive yourself bonkers. Uh, I think for me and lifetime's purposes, what we're really focused on is allowing at least 60 days when we decide to test something. And it's kind of like that lever game on prices, right? Where, they're spinning he's like changing the numbers and it's like, how many numbers did I get right? And he
Yeah,
pulls the
yeah, yeah.
lever. I don't want to change five numbers at once and be like, oh, well, we changed all five and that's what did it. Well, what number actually did derive the change? So if I'm going to commit to something, I want to give it at least 60 days to bake, 90 days if possible, if I'm seeing results, and then be willing to change something that I can see that's standing out in the data that should be something that I should look at a different data point.
Yeah, I'm going to summarize what you just said for the listener because I agree 100% with you. 60 to 90 days, then find one lever, maybe two, but probably one lever to optimize. Because we got all excited when we first started doing this. We're like, hey, let's optimize this. Let's optimize this. Let's cut this out. Let's pull, this. And then you don't know what made the difference.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I mean, that is the problem is that like when you have more control, because when with linear TV and, pretty much this conversation's turned into TV and media buying, but the you don't have control over who's watching. Like you don't know what eyeballs are looking at it. You don't know, and the other thing that I would say that we haven't talked about yet is that you're able with connected TV to target people that actually own their house. So when you look at linear TV, half the people, depending on the market, 40%, 50%, they could be renting. So it's not even the right eyeballs looking at your ads. So
Yeah.
with connected TV, I'm able to understand that these people own the home. Like these are the people that I want to talk to. So you're just condensing down the barrel to where you're instead of trying to shoot fish in the ocean, you're shooting them in a barrel.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for indulging me on that conversation. I'm kind of what's the analogy? If the guy has a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
We're like this is heavy on our agenda right now, so we're going through a lot of this. So it's just fun to find somebody who's also going through it and compare some ideas. Okay, well, we're kind of getting to the point where it's about time to land the plane. From a marketing standpoint, what other things are like, hey, what marketing thing can you tell the audience that's interesting, unique, works really well? If you got 10 of them, just throw one at us real quick.
Yeah. I, I repeat and referral business is huge. Um, being able to create a raving fan out of a customer that was on a contract and to be able to create an environment, the highest form of flattery is imitation. So everything that we really focus on getting out direct mail pieces, partnering with the right agencies to be able to get not just touching the people that we've already done business with, but incentivizing them to be able to refer others. And I don't, when you look at how much it costs to issue a lead these days, if I'm paying a customer that referred somebody else $250, I'm making money. And so being willing to shell the money out, it's always going to be the cheapest form of marketing for us, because and I don't think it matters the size of your database.
What are you guys running in terms of percentage of business that's repeat and referral?
I would say anywhere from, depending on market, 25 to 30%. I would love to see that number upwards of 40. If honestly, Rich, if it was 80%, I would be ecstatic about that. I don't think that you can do enough to be able to incentivize customers to tell other people how great you are.
I'll tell you this. The highest number I've ever heard is 50%.
Yeah.
Shout out to Justin over at Next Door and Window in Chicago. This is the second highest number I've heard of a company at scale. Okay. I've seen a lot of $3 million companies that are running 30, 40, 50% repeat and referrals because they literally do nothing else and they just wait for people to need stuff. But 25 to 30% is very, very robust. So here's what I want to know about this. Are there any specific tools that you use to facilitate repeat and referral, or is it just the mailers with your agencies?
Mailers, but it's more education with our employees as well. So our sales representatives are talking about it. Our project managers, when they're closing out the project, are doing it. When we send the recap to say, here's how you contact us if you need service. By the way, did you hear about our awesome referral program? And so I feel like we message it out as many times as we can throughout the sales process so that when the customer gets into that heater moment where they're like, wow, these windows are amazing, the siding is awesome, this bathroom is beautiful. It's like, hey, thanks. We'd love for you to put a review on the Google for us or BBB or Facebook or whatever. But could you tell me about two or three people that you think in your neighborhood or friends, family that would also benefit from the same type of quality install that we provided to you? And we're messaging that and we're training that to be able to, and it's just culturally that this is how we generate the lowest form cost of marketing that we possibly can is by when we have the attention of the customer, we're standing face to face, we're explaining to them this is what we can do with it. And then we follow up and our cadence is really once a quarter throughout the year after that person purchases.
Do you Did you guys have a huge influx when you came on per our earlier conversation to start the bathroom division? So I'll bet you were kind of like, oh yeah, these guys have this huge database. Let's go start selling them bathrooms.
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the first things that we did was we sent out a mailer to all of our previous customers to let them know that we had extended our product offering into bathrooms. So, it's a celebration at that point. It shows the customer too that you're growing. It's like, hey, and I will say that, when you think about a 20, 30, 40, $50,000 contract and you're giving somebody 250 bucks, they are so happy about getting that money for the referral because to them it just goes against their investment. So they're telling people how happy they are and not just in a global setting where they're going to the HOA board and being like lifetime's amazing. Now, if I had customers do that, I probably would double it, and give them whatever to become an advocate for the company. But I think it's just so important to just message it out into the community, meaning our internal community with the company, and talking about success stories. And we track it as well. So like we're tracking referrals and we're talking about them in every area of our business.
Do you guys have a brand ambassador program or something similar?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you speak to that for 30 seconds?
Yeah, so as far as the brand ambassador program, like there's different levels. So if you refer one person, they we don't just want one referral. Like there's no cap on that for the customer. So if they keep getting us referrals, we start tiering them up to give them higher incentives based on how many people that they're
You guys use GTR by chance?
uh we have, yep.
Okay. I mean that on the scale that you guys are running this, that sounds like a either that tool or something similar would be very useful.
Correct. Yeah, and it also is it can bog you down, when you're looking at the amount of jobs that we complete on a monthly basis. So partnering with the right agency to make sure that, that we're contacting each customer on the right cadence and also that we're not missing one or letting it fall through the cracks. The last thing that I would ever want to do is to incentivize somebody to give us a referral and then me not follow through on my end of the bargain. So, it's important to be able to track those folks diligently.
All right. Core values, courageous, loyalty, accountability. Lean into the storm like a buffalo.
Absolutely.
Josh
Yep.
Coffey, amazing interview. Thanks for your time today. Look forward to meeting you at person. Do you frequent any of these industry events, top 500, et cetera?
Yeah, we get out to the top 500 event, been to the Fast Remodeler event before as well. Busy over here, traveling, but we like to go to the Qualified Remodeler event every year. So
All right. Well, look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thanks again for your time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
thanks, Rich.